I wanted to take a moment to talk about some tricks and tips when working with Blackboard. I also would like you to keep in mind that the course is constantly in development and changes may or may not be necessary throughout the semester. Just keep an open communication with me about those changes. Um, when generally using these Blackboard sandboxes, the course is developed upside down and everything is preloaded and pre-scheduled to try to make this as smooth as a process as possible. Students will start at the bottom and they will not be able to see any of these items on top. So I suggest that you constantly use the student preview so that you can see exactly what is available for each student at that time. You can also check student progress in the gradebook, but that's more of a separate video. So when a student finishes the Start Here folder, it will unlock the chemistry folder. If they finish the chemistry folder, it will unlock the cell folder, and so on and so forth. We also have to pay attention to the group project, which is kind of concurrent to the rest of the semester, but it has all of its own instructions, instructional videos, and so forth. There's also a separate video for you about how to conduct the group project. The students generally utilize the gradebook to navigate, so you may run into some discrepancies with students that think that an assignment may or may not be available to them. I always encourage them to make sure that they're navigating through the content and making sure that they have everything in the content done, because gradebook, like I said, it constantly receives updates and sometimes changes the settings of the course. If those changes happen, we will discuss them. But just to let you know, all the assignments should be preloaded and pre-available to the students at the appropriate time based on their progress and their performance. So students really have a unique experience when they're going through the course. For Biology 1 and Biology 2, the course follows the same general pattern. We have starting folders, which is generally due the first week of class, and then the content begins. We always have 3 units. The first unit is 3 weeks long, and the other 2 units are 4 weeks long, where a student has a given lesson. Each student has access to all of the lesson. You can make it big screen if you want to. They have the PowerPoint available to them, the guided notes within the PowerPoint, all of the links within the PowerPoint, and all of the reminders at the end of the PowerPoint, such as the homework, the lab write-up, the quiz, and these study resources such as the textbooks, vocabulary, and some games. If you receive reports from students that some of these links are expired, let me know so that I can update them. Students also have access to a lecture video for each and every week. So if a student misses a week, it is available to them 24/7 online, just like that. Each unit has a practice quiz associated with it, so they can utilize this practice quiz easily without jeopardizing their grades. And some students like to go through these practice quizzes quite a few times. Some of them only use it once, some of them don't use it at all. But this is one of our more useful tools that students seem to like, because it does reflect the exams and the quizzes fairly well. There's always an end of unit mastery, which is kind of a practice quiz for the whole unit. It is not an exact preview of the exam, so I do tend to warn my students, like, this is great practice, but it's not the only thing that you need to be doing. If you are having trouble understanding these questions, memorizing the answers are not going to help. You need to understand these questions because they're similar to the exam, but they're not the exact same questions. And all students should be able to access this. If students have a hard time accessing this, I ask them to change their pop-up blocker, or sometimes they are viewing Blackboard inside of a different browser instead of Chrome. I always suggest Chrome works best. Each of these units has a contact form at the bottom of it in case a student has any questions. Before the student begins, they have access to these beginning of course materials, which are really meant just to teach the student how to go through the class, as well as the introductory video, which teaches the students to go through the class. I also frequently refer students to tutor.com, which is a great resource for students who want to speak to somebody who's not their teacher. Sometimes students don't feel comfortable coming to me for help, but they do always have a live tutor available to them for free through tutor.com as long as they click on this link. Besides the course materials, there is a group project, which, as I mentioned, is concurrent to all the other work. And then these items at the top are not visible to students unless they meet certain requirements. For instance, if they fail an exam, they will get an exam retake. It is only open for 3 days, and it does not replace their grade, but it will average with their original test grade, which allows them to earn some points back. But I do have this warning written here telling them, please take this opportunity seriously, because if they take it and they fail again, it doesn't help them and it can actually hurt them. So I want to give those students that opportunity to take that retake, but I want them to understand that this is not a freebie. They can't just goof off on the exam and rely on the retake. It averages into their score. At the same time, if they do take their exam, all they have to get is 1 point. As long as they get 1 point, then they get an extra credit opportunity, which should be automatically graded. You shouldn't have to grade that. After they complete all of their units, they have the final exam. There is a unit review, which follows the same format, where a student can just click on the unit that they're going over and find videos, as well as the original Genially unit if they want to review, and then a quiz for that unit, or a quiz for the entire final, which is also sometimes helpful to students. Once a student turns in their final exam, they will receive an exit message thanking them for joining the class and asking for a little bit of feedback. This is completely optional, but it does warn students that if there is any problem with their grades, that they need to contact you immediately. So it is important to update the contact information there. These assignments may or may not stick around. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them, but they only open up if a student is 1 point away from a letter grade and allows them to kind of plead their case. So I'm experimenting with that assignment. It may or may not stick around. There is a calendar, but students don't tend to use it very much. Announcements are up at the top. So far, the announcements are not listed chronologically. There is a case in Anthology talking about that, so hopefully we will see that update rolled out soon, but right now they're just kind of all thrown in there randomly, and so you may have to kind of search for the title of the announcement that you want to look at. But all of these announcements are preloaded with all of the correct information except for the date. Of course, you will need to edit those dates. I do not utilize discussion boards very frequently. I have a general Q&A that I don't check. It's more for students to communicate with each other about the class. But then there is a team project discussion, and that does need to be graded. I feel that it encourages students to openly communicate and kind of get the ball rolling with their group project as long as there's a grade attached to their communication. So that is a graded discussion board. I don't monitor it for content as much as I monitor it just for making sure that students are communicating with each other. Gradebook. Gradebook has some issues with it that I would rather speak during our meeting about. BlackBoard is constantly rolling out updates, which kind of changes the information that I would need to tell you for Gradebook. So for future information, for further information about Gradebook, just contact me. So far, it is set up with these categories. Participation is 10%, group work is 20%, assignments is 30%, and exams is 40%. The extra credit is calculated automatically but separately, and the overall grade should be accurate to the student, excluding the extra credit. It does not include the extra credit. Extra credit is calculated separately. At the end of the semester, I will add that extra credit back into the student's gradebook. And so this is what it looks like. that there is 100 total points, but 10 points of extra credit, so we end up getting 110 points. This grade column is the grade that I would use for turning in progress reports or final grades, this one right here. But it is not visible to the student because the way that the Blackboard gradebook is set up. If you have any other questions about the general layout of Blackboard Ultra or general use of Blackboard Ultra, reach out to me. More information will be available through the course continuation videos. You can check on student progress in several different ways. I like to view the analytics because I can see students with alerts, and you can set up different alerts. Right now I have the alert set up for any student that is failing will send me an alert, or students that have not logged in within the last 7 days sends me an alert. So you can edit those alerts yourself. But what I find useful when I'm trying to track student progress is when I go to that student's account, I can view progress, which actually shows me which folders that student has accessed. So out of all of them, this fake student has not accessed any of them. They would appear unlocked if the student had access to them. So this is one way that you can check a student's progress besides just their grades. All right, if you have any other questions, let me know.